Curmudgeon 270 as far as the numbered issues go. Got a couple of interesting things to talk about. Somebody brought up something. We were talking last week about a bear mace, monster mace. Stinking Cloud is suggested as being, could double as bear mace. And I would say that would probably be right. And it might actually drive away some lesser creatures. And some that are not so lesser might get a little annoyed and become even angrier. I don't know. But hey, it's a good idea. And you should always keep thinking like that. Outside the box, new uses. All right. Now, got a bunch of related questions all right, from the same individual. And it's about melee combat. And it's why I don't play it this way. I play it as more of a swirling, fluid, Arrow Flynn type of affair than the Inigo Montoya one-on-one stuff. No. All right, here we go. Why backstab when you can flank? If you outlaw backstabbing in general melee, how do you deal with flanking? I don't. This is all fake crap. This is all trying to make rules for stuff that really don't need rules. Okay? You're in melee. All right. My melee, it starts out as a generalized melee. Swirling, etc. You roll to hit. If you hit, you don't get to choose which one you hit. If you're not squared off one-on-one, you hit something. You hit one of them, and you inflict some damage. Sometimes one of them goes down right away because everybody hits the same one. Sometimes it takes a long time because the hits are spread out. That's the way of it, and that's the way I like it. Now, backstabbing and flanking. Backstabbing is something that, in my world, only can be done can only be attempted one time. It's a surprise move, literally from behind or from an unexpected quarter. Flanking's crap. Now you're going to get down into tactical movements of each individual. Nah. Flanking is something you do with a unit in the field. You flank a company, you flank a division, whatever. You don't need that in one-on-one combat. And if the later editions are what made people think you did, well, screw the later editions. People are, in my opinion, people have screwed up melee combat way beyond where it needs to be. There can be occasions where you do get squared off one-on-one, okay? But in the early initial rounds, it's all swirling, and all right, and then maybe what you're fighting does decide to pair off with you because they're pretty tough, and they think maybe a couple of them can take one of you. I don't know. The rationale's immaterial. Therefore, you don't flank. You flank, if you're coming hauling ass down a corridor and you run into the side of a bunch of orcs that are heading off in another way in an intersection, yeah, I guess you flanked them. Too much of combat in role-playing now is fencing. Does flanking a single enemy with multiple characters give the attackers an advantage? Well, of course it does. 3 guys rolling dice to hit one. 1 guy rolling back to hit one. Of course it does. That's common sense. Yes. But that's not flanking. That's ganging up. It's assumed that one will be on the front and one will be over to the side and maybe one's trying to... That's assumed. I'm 74 years old. When I was a younger man, when I was a boy, I was in a number of group fights. It was something we did. And believe you me, it was not what apparently a lot of people seem to think. You don't really squaring off comes later. It's not how it works. You have some generalized melee, and then you find somebody to square off with. And that's the way it almost always works. Big swirling melee. Oh, there's somebody. He's trying to hit me. I'm going to hit him back. Do missile attacks on enemies. Engage with a melee attacker. Confer similar flanking advantages. If you shoot into melee, you stand a chance of hitting your own guy. I don't care how good you are. You don't know where everybody's moving in the next few instances. You are aiming at your target. You don't know that that guy isn't going to move in front of you, between you. No, you cannot keep all the fire lanes open. That's not possible. Therefore, if you shoot into melee, or melee, however you like to pronounce it, I go back and forth, you stand a chance of hitting the wrong target. That's why I never encourage doing that. Never. Unless you have a bolt of seeking or something of that nature that's only going to hit the target. But then again, you step in between it. Don't shoot into melee. Don't shoot into melee. Screw it. Flanking. You don't need, this isn't a sword fighting company. This isn't the Olympic saber duels. You know, I got the gold medal in the saber of the Olympics. That's not what this is. This is rough and tumble, knock them down with your shoulders, bash them with your shield, poke them with your sword, smite them with your axe. There's no points here. There's no civility, niceties here. He's trying to kill you, and you're trying to kill him. Real simple stuff. Strictly speaking, would you reduce the XP awarded for success against a flanked enemy? No! A beaten enemy is a beaten enemy. Experience points is about getting the job done and living to tell the tale. Experience points get you more hit points in the long run, which is where you accumulate those hit points as tricks to avoid the fatal blow. How'd you pick them up? In the experience you got getting to this point. You killed it, you get the points. Period. Maybe you killed it in a really novel way, and I might have given you extra points for that kill. But I'm not going to take points away from you if you get lucky, because God knows you get unlucky enough to even it out. If it sounds like I'm shouting tonight, it's only because my wife's out of town and I can speak freely. So you may have to turn it down this week. How's that for a switch? What disadvantages would PC suffer from being surrounded by enemies outnumbering them? Well, shit. I can... the example here is double, okay? There's 5 of you and 10 of them. Well, there's going to be 2 of them at some point. There's going to be 2 of them trying to smite you when you're trying to smite one of them. In the very beginning, in that swirling part, there's going to be 10 of them swinging, trying to get the numbers they need, against 5 of you swinging back. Yeah, there's an advantage. There's always going to be an advantage. This is common sense brawling. The later editions have pussified all the aspects, tried to abstract all the aspects of fighting. Can PCs pay to learn techniques for fighting multiple enemies, and what would that mean in practical mechanical terms? No. As you get better, you're better able to do those types of things. It's not a skill that I would award. Fighting 3 guys, no, oh yeah, don't fool with him. He's an expert in fighting 4 at once. Okay, what happens if just one person comes up to fight him? What if there's 5? Nah, too much, too many nits to pick. All right, now to go on by this individual. Enjoyed the off-topic rant. Newspapers have a lot to contend with nowadays with shrinking circulations, but delivery central to a subscription print model that your newspaper doesn't have that well in hand is distressing. It's a tribute to your tenacity. You learn about clawback on the delivery. Yeah, I got this really great delivery guy. I haven't always had great delivery guys, but this one, he takes over the route. The first day he delivers the route, there's a handwritten one-page note. Hi, my name is so-and-so. I live over in this side of the city. Here's my phone number. If you got any problems at all, please call me. Well, now I find out, why to please call me and don't call them. And so I'm on his side. I've been in part of the newspaper business for over 65 years. Started out as a carrier. I've done every aspect of it, including, I haven't sent the print. Haven't done the press. But I've done all the other jobs. Anyway, talk of flanking gives me flashbacks from 3rd edition. In my opinion, backstab is less about exact positioning and more about exploiting the element of a surprise to deadly effect. Yes. If a thief or whoever can sneak up on a foe, assuming they're not blind and have a defined front and back, I'd assume they'd approach from the rear regardless of any backstab ability. Having such an ability just signals to me that they get an extra bonus for doing so over and above what you'd normally give them for such a feat. Absolutely. It's just a knack. A knack. And you get to exercise the knack or you don't. All right. What are goblin weapons made of? Well, probably metal, because wood swords don't do too good. Unless you're practicing kendo with another person skilled in it. Do they craft their own? I have always assumed, or kind of, not assumed. My goblins, in my world, goblins can make some clans can make their own crude weapons. Some clans might make a little better than average weapons. Some clans might not be able to make weapons at all. Some of them might be really good at going around and picking stuff off, finding things, picking stuff up off a battlefield after the battle, whatever. I've always considered that they just had a hodgepodge of whatever was available. Being a goblin, given that a goblins, we'll say, a 3-foot tall goblin, if you had a meat fork this long, becomes a very effective short spear for a goblin. Think about it. Big meat fork that you might use for in a kitchen, in a casual kitchen. Broken knives, repaired knives, broken swords. Swords are broken but cut back down and made into very efficient daggers. My goblins don't have a lot of archery skills, though a given clan may be a little more apt to use archery. Short bows, common bows, crude arrows, unless they can pick them up and cut them down, etc., etc. In my world, goblins are good at scavengers. Here's somebody who says, I'll second the recommendation of B4. I feel like I've run it too many times, so rally to completion. Speaking of a module, I just, as I was cleaning off my pinball machine, which I've now been able to play for the last couple of days, I haven't done it in a couple of years, had too many games and crap on it, I ran across a G2 in very excellent condition. I was quite surprised. All right. I had to look this term up. Retcon. A shortened form of retroactive continuity. It refers to a literary device in which the form or content of a previously established narrative is changed. Okay. Got that. I think I have an idea what's going on here. Bad news ahead for me. I've got a player who has been arguing with me and trying to manipulate me for their own gain, cheating rules that I have allowed. Well, there's your first mistake. And now acting like he didn't know and retconning his character's existence. The irony is that he yelled at me for trying to retcon something in the game because it was misinformation and happened to screw him. I'm so close to kicking him out of the group, but I want to see what he's got to say about this whole, what he's got to say about this whole situation. My question is, how many red flags is enough for you to kick players like this out of your group? Well, it would depend on the player. The only time I can't handpick a group is at a con. Obviously, I'm not going to throw somebody out at a con. But if I get somebody at a con that's being a dick, I'll stop the game and ask him why he's being a dick. And I'll use that terminology. And I don't give a damn if it embarrasses him. Because if he's going to behave like that at a con, maybe a little red face will be good for him. And anyway, okay, retconning. Yeah, it's a good literary device. Gee, it was all a dream, Dallas. This next person goes on to say that as a DM, you're perfectly within your rights to retcon. It might be bad form, and I try to avoid it whenever possible, but DMs always reserve the right to do it. If you feel like you can handle it, keep a record of his stats, abilities, characters, state independent of his cheated records. Clearly articulate your right to do this, and in the case of any discrepancy between your notes and his, refer to yours. If he persists, acting in defiance of your rulings, like playing if he's still alive after he should have died, ignore him and keep running the game with the other players until he falls in line or leaves. Or you could just kick him if that's not worth the hassle. Either way, you should never tolerate a genuine threat, good faith misunderstandings aside, to your authority to run a game in your world however you want. Yes, I agree. It is bad form also. I agree there. But sometimes it can be a lot of fun. Bad form. But, let's try this now. Could be some fun. Absolutely, as a DM, you have the right to do that to keep clarity and keep continuity in your game. You have that right. As a player, you absolutely do not have that right. It's cheating. Your player is your player. Your character is your character as your character. If you said that they were raised by savages in the jungle and he had a bone in his nose and it filed his teeth to points, You can't come back later when he's found his way into the real world and take the points off his teeth. That kind of seems like the same thing to me. Now, without specifics, and I really don't need them, DMs have the right to go back and say, "Whoo, it was all a bad dream." Just as they have the right, if they so choose, in a TPK moment, to, after everybody realizes, oh shit, we're dead, do something like, "However, on alternate world 17-2B-1AU, it worked, and you pick the game right back up as though it never happened." That's similar, isn't it? The DM has the right to do that. And as a player that just got creamed, I'll bet you'd support the DM having that right to go back and redo something. However, the players do not. It's not their world. They're only playing in it. They're only living in it. They are not their creators. Just my opinion. Your mileage may vary. And yeah, if you could, what bothered me right off the bat was he cheated and you allowed it. See, if I catch a player fudging something, I don't jump. I immediately step in. There's a discrepancy here, isn't there? I don't go, "Hey man, you're cheating." But I will call him on it and let him know that I know what's going on, and we will resolve it. All right. Now, once again, 3 magic letters have reared their ugly heads and created another firestorm of argument. OSR. OS has enough problems, I guess. Old school. I guess younger gamers figure it's something that only people my age do. Back when I was first coming back into the hobby, 12, 14 years ago maybe, a little bit after I'd come back into the hobby, there was a big debate going on about what did OSR stand for. Was it Renaissance, which I also thought, I always was a little uncomfortable with that. I liked revival. And I still lean that way because the way play has developed and the way from where we used to play, I'd like to revival and get some of that good old time feeling going, just like the old revivals of the early 20th century and late 19th century. Get some of that good time vibe going. And I'm not being anti-religious here. Let's feed on this and let's revive the old school. The old school is rules light. The old school is high risk, high reward. The old way of playing did not allow for the buffing of players before they've even set foot in a dungeon. You started out with no backstory because you wrote your backstory. Your backstory could be 2 or 3 lines. Duck Quest, an Australian role-playing game. Brilliant. I've talked to it before. Your backstory can be 3 sentences. That's it. No more. 3 sentences. You have to write your story. When you start out as that level 1 player, you have a blank clay tablet in front of you, a stylus in your hand, and it's up to you to inscribe your story. Old school is more about fun. Old style, maybe we'll call it old style, but ew, that sounds worse. It's about trying to do the preposterous, knowing you probably wouldn't be able to, but having fun trying anyway. It was about one of the issues I see today in role playing that I see as a major issue, and I would say go so far as to say problem, is emotional investment in a slip of paper. Because when you boil it all down and parse it all up and trim off all the fat, you got that piece of paper that's got 6 numbers on it and a name and some other vital stats, kind of like an oversized driver's license and not much more. I will continue to preach against the fact that people should not be running a single character, devoting all their time and energy to a single player character. Because if you're playing in a game where that player character can die, then they probably will at some point, and then where are you? I believe in the way that we used to do it. Not because it's necessarily better because that's the way we used to do it, but because of the advantages that it presents. If you're fortunate enough to play in a campaign that has more than one DM, or a DM and an assistant, and you can have multiple adventures or adventures going on. Well, you can't do it with just one, which is why we always had about a half a dozen of varying levels. And our best one seldom went on one that sounded like it was going to be really tough until others had braved the dangers, come back with some reliable information, and okay, the next time, maybe I can. We played on what later became known as Greyhawk, Gary's World. Rob would be running a game, Gary would be running a game. Rob's game would be literally over in one part of Greyhawk, on one part of the continent. Gary's game would be on another. Obviously, you can't have the same player character 600 leagues apart. So we always had a stable of characters. Some of them were healing up. And they were healing up in different places. Some of the old ones were buried in different places, or eaten, or whatever. But we didn't invest all that intensity of emotion into a single character. We slipped in and out of the different player characters, as circumstance demanded. And I think that's a crucial failing today, is people get so wrapped up in a single character that some people suffer psychologically and emotionally if the character dies. And the fact that in 5e, apparently, from what I'm told, it takes failing three chances before you actually finally die. I think the old style is the better style because it's rules light. It's about having fun. It's not about being clinically depressed if something happens. It's more about, okay, next time I'll bring back so-and-so, your other character, and you'll go into there again. And that's fair to do, because you can assume that the other character that you're going to play the next time has been fully briefed by the other players who came back out after you died, And, I mean, it's to their advantage to have your new character, your different character fully briefed so as to be the most help to the group. Right? I think so. Anyway, old school revival, old school renaissance, old style, original, whatever. There's 5 different variations, 6 if you count original. There's 6 different variations of D&D, and they're all basically the same. They just get into different levels of detail and nitpicking. A couple of the editions have rules that I consider to be virtually unplayable, but it's still all about pretending to be somebody swinging a sword, killing bad guys. It should be about having fun, not about the system. Having fun. If you're having fun, you're doing okay. If you're only having a little fun and you think maybe there's more fun to be had, well, try something different. Nobody's gonna make you wear a red letter on your chest if you decide to try a different game. Personally, I don't. For me, role-playing fun is the struggle. I don't. The model of Pathfinder, starting out all buffed up and following the path that your life's going to, that concept, while an interesting concept, has no appeal for me. For me, it's the struggle. Getting there. Laughing in the face of death as you scamper out of the dungeon just ahead of the bad, the whatever you just outran with a fistful of pearls in your pocket. That's what it's about. Your mileage may vary, and many of you probably do. But think about it. Just think about it. Some of you are going to be going to Gen Con. I understand that my Curse of the Weaver Queen by Olgard, published by Olgard, should be out then. So look for it. I haven't seen it either. And keep playing. Hot weather, go inside and play games. Dodata Gobi. Hello, and welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Last man around when them rates went down. Called in Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. DSR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.